那个好，那早上我们这边看起来有很多同学有一些问题，我们没有那边留时间给各位同学问问题，所以今天下午我们一开始的时候，是不是我们先开放一些 Q&A 是不是有同学们有问题可以问一下 speaker。Any questions, speaker, about the material presented this morning? Okay, so if there's no question, then we will move on to this afternoon's presentation. So if you come out later on, you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and ask the speaker. Hello?
Okay. So much. Let's continue. So during the lunch breaks, we got some feedback saying we should leave some time in case people need to ask any questions. The good news is we have less to talk this afternoon. So yeah, I will bypass some details so I can save more rooms for any questions you may have. The next topic I want to talk is also our algorithm level research, but the idea is trying to accelerate, the computation of the neural network. So the basic concept is very simple. Again, we have many equations and even theoretical proof, but you can really bypass those things. Okay, if you don't want to know what they are. So this is one paper we will publish in the coming ISCCD. The basic idea is how we can automate the field filters so we can reduce the size or the scale of the deep learning neural network, but still maintain the similar accuracy. So I believe a lot of people know the PCA, principal component analysis, and there is also similar technology in deep learning for the linear discriminant analysis. The basic idea is we have a lot of filters. The filters can be represented as vectors in the design space. And if you have a lot of filters, and those filters will represent the different directions of the vectors in the space. If we can somehow to group or cluster those filters to the smaller one, and smaller number of those representative filters, then we can use one representative filter to represent all the filters to approximate the result of the deep learning network. That is the basic idea. And naive way is trying to use the mean filters after the grouping so that we can approximate the cluster of the filters. And we already talked about a lot of clustering technique, the basic idea, right? We have a lot of vectors of values, and we're trying to group them so I can have a clear cut between different groups, and in final way we can represent the things. For some people in this room, work on the traditional EDA technology. In the EDA, we have we used to have very popular research topic called model reduction. So the basic idea is we have a two-dimensional or multi-dimensional representation of this matrix, and then we are able to compress the dimensions of this multi-dimensional representation to this smaller one, so that the variable matrix can be somehow approximate by using the smaller the multiplication by the small border filters and the linear combination like this. Can still reconstruct the original filter design, the matrix design, by using those two the small matrix. So basic idea is like you have eigenvalues of the matrix, and we have RU or QR decompensation, right? And somehow we can use the low rank representation of the two matrices to modify them together to reproduce the original matrix and still preserve the majority of those behaviors. And we still maintain the majority of the eigenvalues, which are large enough to preserve. And smaller eigenvalues, we can dump them because we assume those eigenvalues does not generate some sufficient large impact on the output. That is a very basic idea. Similar idea here. And by doing so, we're able to approximate the filters by the linear combination of the smaller number of the field filters. In this case, you have very large field filters that can be represented by two smaller matrices, and one has the m times 1 and the 1 times n is the the size of the field filter. We can still be able to reconstruct the original field filters. That is the very basic idea. Now the question is, how do we find out the smaller matrix with a lower rank can perfectly or restore those field filters? So we have two ways to do it. The first way is we have the filters, and then we're trying to cluster those filters so I can find out the mean filter to represent those cluster filters. That's one way to do it. And traditionally, a lot of research has been done in this particular area. But we already learned how we can manipulate the loss function during the training to manipulate the training process of the neural network, and also also to guide the structure of the weight to whatever the structures which we want to convert to. So another way is that's another way is we actually can somehow guide the training process, so that we can have a smaller number of the field filters, or the same number of the filters, but collapsed to the dense area, so that we can use the mean filter to better represent this collapsed filters. And this is the result show that there's original design. There's a design. Now you can see all the features actually collapse to some smaller number of the representative field features compared with the original and we chop the representative feature to some extent. So this is a visualized mathematical view for this. For example, we have two filters. Each of them is represented by Wi and Wj. If somehow we can generate a force is a terminology, some mechanism trying to converge those two filters closer to each other, as we just showed here. Then during the training, after training, those two filters may become closer to each other, so that they can be better represented by some mean filters. That is the basic idea. So that we can generate the force vectorization with the difference, based on the difference between those two filters, and it will give some penalty on this difference. And finally, we try to minimize those differences during the training, and the smaller difference we will generate, and the better representation we will produce by using this mean filters. And those are the details how you can generate those things. You can minimize the arrows, the reduced rank is basically the difference between the difference between the different filters, and this can be represented by using this equation. It's basically the force minus the force times the difference, and we can use L1 nor L2 nor to calculate this difference. That's a very similar one. If you don't like the equation, just simply understand this way, like we try to give some penalty on the difference between different weights, and to make them closer to each other. So let's look at the result. This is a Google. This is a Google Night. So the blue one shows the baseline of the parameters per layers, and what you can find out is, that actually increase with the number of the layers, and the right one is, the number of the parameters that we really introduced by using our own, structure. So what you can see is this with information actually dramatically reduced by using the L2 norm, also use the L1 norm, so that we still maintain similar amount of information at the beginning of those convolution layers. Following the increase of the convolution layers, we actually dramatically reduce those information. So it's actually implied two things. Number one, there were so many redundancies, in the convolutional layers when their number is large. And number two, this information can be reduced by using this technique, okay, for the force radicalization on weight. This so the convolution. This is right side. This is a Google night. You can see the similar trend. So, and the rank will also reduce accordingly. And the accuracy loss is actually very small. In this case, 0.7% for the RAS night and 2.4%, for the Google night. Okay, and you can see overlap between the blue and red. That's just for the comparison. So interesting, right? The baseline here is not the original design. It actually means the conventional lower ranking design, which we got the neural network, and then we try to find the LDA, trying to find the mean filter, and the right one is our force radicalization. So you will see that in following the increase of the iteration, we actually convert faster and to the smaller error rate. Okay, so for the training data loss and for the validation errors. So why we can achieve the higher accuracy compared with the LDA? It's very simple, because we preserve because the weights, the field filters are collapsed, to the one which are closer to each other. So the cluster, the mean field filter will better represent those field filters, and when we reconstruct the neural network of the filters, that will better represent to the regional value. So that is the idea. This chart shows the highest speed up for the outline by the force radicalization. We didn't really achieve. We didn't achieve the high speed up for the convolution layers 1 and 2, because if you still remember the figures we show here, with the information pretty much preserved before and after the L2 norm force is radicalizations of applied. However, for the deeper convolutional network, you'll see a significant improvement on the speed up, which means we remove a lot of redundant information. And the top one errors are very similar. I will show here. Slightly higher, but it's very similar. But speed up is actually pretty high. In such a case, we say the 2.4, 2.45 or 1. Something. The theoretical improvement is a 2.65. So which means we're not only better represent those collapsed field filters, and we also preserve very good cache access pattern. Okay, so that is something we're trying to deliver here. Also, what you can see is for the CPU speed up compared with any other work, we also achieve very high speed up compared with all the other techniques. Like the baseline arachnite in cafe, and we have a CP decomposition, the one shot, or the ISSL, which is the one which you introduced. And now you can see the ISL improved by 1.3 something to 3.1 something, and our design can outperform ISSL by about 100 times. So that is the result. And for the top error rate, our top error is slightly higher than the ISSL because ISSL, when we're trying to design the cost function, the target is the accuracy. But here, the target is amortized by or offset by the difference between different filters. And that's what shows you. But it's a very minimal change compared with ISSL. Now the next question, if I present here, the next question you will have is how we really combine, this low rank DNN with the ISSL, right? Because ISL, what ISL does is trying to remove the weight which generates a small motor impact on the output. And here is trying to optimize the fuel filters. So they are operating on different types of the parameters. The answer is yes. We are able to apply this low rank design with the connection pruning or with the ISSL, and both of them will see additional performance improvement. Okay, and there this compression rate may be in some cases may be improved, maybe reduced, depends on the convolutional layers of fully connected layers. But structure, this is very similar thing. Structural sparsity also decreased by the convolution layers and increased by the fully connected layers. So you see the opposite impact on those things, but both of them will did I show the result here? Okay, so that I did not show performance result here, so sorry, I should show here. But either way, you will find out that we will achieve the higher sparsity on the majority of the convolutional layers, especially the one with a larger number of the parameters, and that one will result to the performance improvement about 30% higher in later on. I forgot to show the performance result. Okay, so that's the simple way you can see we manipulate the weight, we manipulate the filter, we manipulate the structure. Now the next question is, if we are dealing with a distributed computing platform, which is a very complex scenario, so what we can do besides we do the sparsity, we do the pruning or the scheduler or something. This paper is called the Turner grant, actually means the ternary gradient to reduce the communication in the distributed deep learning. This work is actually joined with HP Lab. So they actually opened up their high performance cluster to us, so we're able to perform this research, which is a very large one. Okay, so let's go back to revisit the parameter story here. So we have nodes, and each workers, actually they have a replicate, of the deep learning models, and we have a batch, which apply on these models. Then we train these models, we generate some gradients, send to the parameter servers, and the parameter servers actually receive all these gradients, and they do the average to compute, the gradients, and send back to all the models to update their gradients. The reason we can do it because mathematically we can prove that, we can always converge by doing so. And if we satisfy some conditions, okay, and this average of all this partially computed gradients, if the number of the workers is large enough, is statistically represent the accurate gradient we should compute. We can mathematically prove this. Oops. So by training the model by using different data in parallel is the key to accelerate the whole things, but it also generate a lot of traffics between this workers and the parameter servers, because we need to synchronize the weight in the parameter servers. And when the part of the increase, the communication will become the bottleneck. You understand this? It's actually very common bottleneck for all the distributed computing, Okay, so the key idea to reduce this communication. So when we start to launch this product, we propose the following things. The number one is we try to randomly quantize the gradients to only 3 levels: 0, positive, and negative. Because still remember, we have some research in the mobile computing paper. We actually only send the 2 values, right? 1 and 0. But now we send to 3 levels, 0, 1, and negative 1. Basically, is saying you're either to increase your gradients or decrease gradients, or you keep the same. And by doing so, we hope we can dramatically reduce, the gradients we transfer between different, workers. And then we have the expectation of the quantized gradients equal to the original value, so that we assume that in the majority case we should not change the gradients. But if we need to change, this 3 levels will give us the guidance, and we will change the quantized gradient rather than the floating point, weights, so as to save the traffic. And also, this. We still maintain a similar averaging mechanism where we send this gradients to the parameter servers. Okay. So now the question is, how could we really, consume this negative, positive, and 0 information to really get, the final gradients, which should be the floating point value, and pass those information back to the different workers. So mathematically we prove, okay, before we talk about the solution, in the paper we prove that we can mathematically prove the guarantee of the convergence of our method, because in 1990, someone proved in the parameter server, that's very basic, that the gradients generated on the parameter server, if we do the average, can always converge. That's a base idea. So if we satisfy some bound of the values of those gradients we generate. So for our 3-level gradients, as long as we can also impose some bound of those gradients we transfer between different workers and parameter servers, we should guarantee the convergence. So to ensure this part, we add something we call the gradient clipping, gradient colliding, a function also here. The basic idea is if the gradients, is smaller than some value, then we give the floating point of this. We keep the floating point of value of the gradients. But if we calculate the gradients larger than some threshold, then we just do the positive and negative. We randomly quantify these gradients, but we're not going to continuously increase the absolute value of the gradients because we want to keep a bound, as we just showed you. Okay. By doing so, we guarantee the convergence. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just forget about this because it's actually, if you don't care about the math, you don't have to understand this. But we can understand this part about how we can really implement these things in the distributed computing environment. So this original distribution. This is the original distribution of the gradient. You see, they all follow different distributions about convolutional layers and also fully connected layers. If we do the clumping, you actually going to find out that we cut the bound of the distribution. We cut the boundaries of this distribution. You see the small bit. But we still preserve the majority of the distribution to ensure the convergence. And then we use the ternary data transmission to transfer those information. Then we find out that when we basically we only have limited levels of those gradients to transfer either positive or negative or zero. They show the distributions. We may normalize the different values of those layers with different upper bound, lower bound of this gradients. But you can see, we only have 3 levels to transfer on each layer. However, we have many walkers in this scenario, right? If a student remember this. So if the parameter server receive all this the ternary gradients from different walkers, what it does is they do the average on all this ternary gradients, and eventually you'll still be able to generate some distribution. Actually, the multi-level of this gradients. Because somehow you can convert 3 levels to multiple levels, and if you have a sufficient number of the walker, even to the floating point of value, by using the average of this mechanism. So now you'll see why this technology will work. It's not because the 3 level will be sufficient for training the network. It's just because we have a large number of the walkers, and those walkers statistically generate different 0 and 1, and we can amortize those different 1 across all the walkers, so that eventually we can restore the floating point distribution or the multi-level distribution of the gradients. Okay, so that's the beautiful part. So finally, we may not be able to restore some original distribution like this, but we still restore the multi-level distribution of the gradients like this, and this will guide the training of our models and send back to each walker and say, hey, this should be the gradients you need to update. So that you even consume this one. Any questions here? Yes.
How about using binary? You say that binary.
Sorry?
You use binary. Binary, yes.
Okay. So I think it's actually what if we use a binary? Binary does not work well, in very complex neural network. The reason is binary basically you have 2 choices. Okay. Either you have keep increasing the gradients or decreasing the gradients, or keep the same. Okay. So if you have only 2 values, you either keep the same or increase that one. or decrease that one. You cannot have three, let's say increasing, decreasing, and stay at the same. If we all learn like the Newton convergence, right? We need to have we need to have a two dimension to converge. So if you have, let's say you have a curve like this, so somehow when we increase the value, we go here and we decrease and we here, we can always converge to this point. But if you only have the increase, it's very hard for you to really convert here perfectly. You need to have positive, negative, and or keep at the same. Okay?
How about consider possible guarantee? Because if you have some large number summation, ideally you should be able to converge to the point where the theoretical point.
The larger number will help to converge. That's also my guess. Okay, I asked my students. They told me they cannot make such a conclusion, even they also guess like this, because they didn't observe very clear evidence on this. That's why in the paper we did not make this claim. But conceptually it should be, because the larger number of the workers, so it actually means you contribute more accuracy on this distribution. You should get it. But in reality, it's hard to say, because it really is, during the training, the beginning of the training, almost nothing but the noise. Okay, they slowly convert to the one which is one. So the conversion is very hard to predict. So that's why you may not really observe such effect. Yeah, it's a very good question. Okay, so we actually implement those things, with the different, training method, mental or vanilla. Pretty much the stochastic gradient descent training. They're pretty much the same. So if we increase the number of the workers, for example, you see the vectors, up and down here, right, for the term, but that's not really changing. So that's why if you look at this. Originally, as we just mentioned, if we increase the number of workers, we should see the lower and lower accuracy, right? But in reality, we did not really observe this. So that's why we didn't make such a statement in the paper. But it's pretty stable. Another thing is, if you look at the result on the Fahrenheit, using the floating values or the ternary gradients, if we increase the workers from the 2 to 16, but still maintain the same, number of the batch size per workers. So actually, this accuracy reduced a little bit, but the iteration to converge is much smaller than the original B. So it somehow implies that if we increase the number of the batch, but still keep the same number of the batch on each workers, we may converge faster, but with lower accuracy. So why? We don't know yet. It's maybe because if actually we can convert to local minima, even for the much lower number of the iteration. If we increase the iteration, we may be able to improve the accuracy. I don't know, but it's going to see. However, if you look at the floating point, is the baseline. The baseline accuracy also reduced compared with only have 2 workers here. Okay, so that actually means for the distributed, we all know for the distributed computing, if the number of workers increase, the accuracy will reduce due to the data inconsistency. And the relative accuracy degradation compared to the baseline and our the ternary gradient design, which actually becomes smaller compared with only 2 workers. That is a good news. That means that if we don't consider increased number of the workers, we will introduce the absolute accuracy degradation. But just compare the accuracy we are going to achieve on the floating point of gradients and the ternary gradients, with a larger number of the workers, actually our results, will get relatively more accurate, data when the number of workers increase. That somehow reflect the criteria you just have, that the more number of the workers may actually generate higher accuracy for that particular setup. Okay, but we are not compared the result with 16 to 2. So that's it. That may be interesting to see how we can improve this, but now we all know increased number of workers for floating point value actually going to reduce that. This is accuracy versus the iteration. So if we increase the iteration, you see the baseline and the canary gradient is pretty much the same, right? And for the training loss and the iteration, actually you will find out, the training loss actually the canary gradient is even lower than the baseline. And the Alice Knight is pretty large. It's based on learning rate, I will show here. And the mean batch size, will be different, but we keep the same batch on each workers. You will find out, the canary gradient is pretty much similar to the original design. But if we don't do the clumping here, you see the accuracy loss. Okay, so it actually means the clumping technique, even we introduce this technique to guarantee the convergence, it actually improves the accuracy, but not decrease that. But not decrease that one, because some technique people propose, actually they try to guarantee the convergence, but they sacrifice the accuracy. But in this particular case, it seems that's not the case. And the iteration number again keep reducing if we have more and more workers. It's actually consistent, to the observation we have in the previous slides. Okay. Google Night is pretty large, and we keep the same batch size. See the similar iterations, flow point, and this one. You'll see the similar, the similar accuracy is about 2%. Again, Google Night, we don't know any optimization technique. It's very hard to generate a similar accuracy. So this 2% something is acceptable in the deep learning society. You can also show the scalability of our yes. Will indicate. Actually, I forgot. I need to check. Yeah, but I didn't pay attention. I think there's some parameters about. I think there's some parameter about how you convert the weight. But you're at this because when the student writes there are a lot of intermediate parameters. Sometimes you don't pay attention to it, but the papers in there you can check. Yeah, but that's not going to be very important for so based on the computing environment, open to us from HH Lab, we actually built the computing model to estimate the speed up of our model with, for example, the computing capacity or the memory bandwidth, or so on and first. And we can pretty much accurately, estimate, how many images we can process, for example, by using our technique. And this basically shows with the different neural network types. This may show Alex Knight, Google Knight, or VEGG. You're going to see, the comparison between the floating point value and also our ternary gradients. you'll see the significant reduction reduction on latency as you implement on the image of image we can process per second. This yellow bar, the light yellow bar shows the RSI, and this I showed with a ternary gradients, and this one shows the floating point. You see the dramatic improvement. And you also see the scalability here. The number of the GPUs increased, and you can see the similar reduction on the process time. The funny part is, if this chart shows the Ethernet and the PCI switch, which is a low, memory bandwidth. This one shows the infinite band, and the NVLink is a high bandwidth memory. And the chart is show A is basically show this one. B shows the GPU with 100 gigabit per second. It's about 100 times of the 1 gigabit per second Ethernet bandwidth. So the result basically means the memory bandwidth is not the major constraint. This is the memory bandwidth is the major constraint. This one can reduce a lot. This one is pretty much the same. It's just for implements, it's relatively smaller compared with the infinite band and the NVLink memory interface. So it's very easy to understand, right? Because we're trying to reduce the traffic on the memory interface. And if the memory interface is not the concern, reduce that one or not, it does not really give us much benefit. So that is the one. So it actually gives us another interesting observation, which is for the distributed, system for the deep learning, deep neural network training, the memory bandwidth is a major bottleneck, and that can be solved by the advanced technology. So don't use the Ethernet when you build this, distributed servers. Use the advanced and expensive one. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay. We talk about a lot about training, learning, and try to find different tricks, right? The tricks on, for example, you can talk about the tricks on the loss function, the trick on the compression, or the trick on the reduction of the model, or the gradients. But all this techniques are proposed to speed up either the training or the testing of the deep learning neural network. Now the question is, can we really optimize the training process, not for a speed up, but for the accuracy? Because the accuracy is actually the primary goal, for this training process. Sacrificing the accuracy for performance is everybody can do, but optimizing the training for higher accuracy is very hard, because people have tried so many techniques. However, there are many particular hardware computing platforms. They have their own characteristics which need to be considered during the training process. And if you don't consider those characteristics, you will not be able to train your neural network when you apply your training neural network down to those power computing of framework. And the following topic is one example. It's actually on the very famous IBM tumor chip, saying you have to understand the hardware before you're really designing your learning process. That's actually, I know the software people may not like it, but that's something they need to learn. Okay, so let's go back to the IBM true neural chip. The evolution of the deep neural network in the last 15 years, they're basically doing this. They're using bigger and bigger network, deeper and deeper layers. Okay, they separate computing and the storage so that okay, they have a GPU here, all the data there, and every time they just rely on the memory interface to load all the data to the CPU or GPU when they run. It's still conventional Neumann architecture. They're very limited, part of them because this, we all know this memory hierarchy or this, computing model heavily, constrained by the data locality, by the cache, so on and so forth. But the generate huge power consumption. Okay? In US, the DARPA launched our product starting from 2007 and officially launched 2008 for the Synapse. They're trying to build something called a brain-inspired architecture to basically overcome all these challenges. So original Synapse project was trying to develop the new nano devices which have some behavior, behave like the neurons or synapse first. And then they realized that at that time it's too great to build this. So they all go back to the conventional CMOS solution and they try to build a synapse and neurons using CMOS. At that time there were two approaches. One approach is they have very powerful centralized neurons and synapse. Powerful, still super neurons are connected, but very few of them. And they try to process, those at that time neural network in that way. Another way is they actually integrate the computation and the storage and do the distributed architecture. And now we know the second approach wins, right? Because we try to build a distributed hardware, distributed computing component and storage component, and use very complex connections to connect them, to map the neural network on top of this. And we can achieve very high parallel on all operations because every single neuron synapse are going to operate simultaneously, but everyone's very simple, so you can have very low power consumptions. And one of the representative the product is IBM true neural chip. I think they burn $50 million something, right? Yeah, 50, more than that, to build the chip. Okay, so what is IBM true neural chip? IBM true neural chip is nothing else but a highly distributed neural network, just like this. They call the neurosynaptic cores. The neurosynaptic cores, each of them has 128 input neurons and 128 output neurons. And they have some technique called the crossbar, like this, so that all the input neurons are connected to all the output neurons. It's a little bit different from our human brain. The human brain, not every neuron connects to all the other neurons, but one will connect to thousands of others. We all know because if you are designing the website circuit, it's very hard to have one point to connect to thousands of other points, right? Because of the two-dimensional routing issue. So instead, I say, okay, if we have one neuron to connect to thousands of neurons, let all of them connect to each other. And we have just some switch on all the cross points so that we can turn on and turn off the switch and also manipulate the signal transferred from the input neurons to the output neurons. for that is symmetrical weight. It's exactly the same as the neural network. So how many neurons do we have? If we calculate this number by 4,000 times by 256, because of 108 plus 128, that's about 1 million neurons in this IBM Neuromorphic chip. And if you count how many synapses we have, because for each of them, the 128 is 128, so we have 256 million synapses, evenly distributed over the 4,000 synaptic cores. The power consumption of this design is very low. It's only about 65 milliwatts when we run, and the peak power is 370 milliwatts. Okay, so, but it's not 128, it's 256. Sorry. So all the data here are represented by using spikes, 0 and 1, with very low frequency, about 1K or something. And a number of the cores connect all those cores together, and for each synaptic weight here is only about 7 bits. It's a low precision. It's not like a floating point, weight we usually use on the neural network. And more than that, on each column, you can only choose 3 integers to represent the weight on each column. It's very like the ternary gradients we use: 1, 0, and positive 1. If we have such a low precision integer weight, we immediately know the true north will not be able to do training, because the training requires floating point data representation, because the gradients, updating the gradients, calculates the difference between the outputs on the first, and the small difference will generate the update. If we have a limited precision here, we will encounter the vanishing gradients issue, so the gradient will be gone during the propagation in the train. So the true north is not able to do the training. Training needs to be done offline, and then deploy the training neural network downgrade. And we will design the neurons at this structure with a lot of tunable parameters like different activation function, bias, and so on first, to represent this. So how we're going to apply, the IBM True chip down to the real application. Let's say we have one database. So database is basically an image of the raw pixels. This image will be deployed down to the key learning released by IBM in Cafe, but not a change. Okay? They're running on the traditional CPU and GPU. They can train their network with a floating point weight, and then they use a T layer to deploy in the CPE, which is called the correlate, the programming environment, to deploy this neural network down to the true north with a low precision on the synaptic integer, like this. And during the testing of the true north, or inference of the true north, we have the raw data, which is sent to the spike encoder to encode the input as a spike. The spike will send to the input of those input neurons and send to the true north, the crossbar structure and get the output. That's how things work. And when I was invited to attend the announcement of the IBM True North And our group was the first about 20 groups in the world received the board. And we were probably the fourth group burn the board. Yeah. And because because there were two power supply on the board. One is 12 volts, and one is 5 volts. One student from Taiwan actually, from Zhongzheng. He actually plugged the 12 volts into 5 volts to burn the board and send it back to replace one. And then the second version of the board, they changed the ASD. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. So that is a little story about this. Okay. So, but when you think about the deploying, the well-trained neural network down to the tuners, you immediately know we need to lose something, right? Because we cannot have a floating point thing that's down to integer, we still keep the same accuracy. That's for sure. But how we lose these things? So here's one example. Let's have a traditional neural model. We have the input neurons, output neurons, and we have some connections, to connect those neurons. And if you have in the neural network, we have the Y is the output, from the synaptic neural network, and the input of the activation neurons equal to the weight times the input plus the fires. And when we then generate output, which is activation function of the Y is input, which from the synapse. All of them are floating value. In the tuners, in the true tuners, we have a, let me see, I have a, okay, let me show you here. In the tuners, we use CMOS to implement this output neurons. I'll show here. And this output neurons is highly customized. You can really consider this one as ideal functions of the neurons. However, for the synapse here, which is each cross point of this neural network, and the input of these neurons, all of them are either spiked or the integer. And none of them will be able to represent data in very high precision. And for this activation function, we have multiple models you can choose. One of them is a MacBlock, PIX neural model. I'll show here. And Z will be the limiting function, which will like Z. For example, if the Y price is larger than 0, we give 1, smaller than give 0, and so on first. But there's some other model you can use. And how we are going to map an image with random number of pixels down to this neurosynaptic course. Here's one example. That's I'm list image, which is 28 by 28 pixels. And we know the input of the synapse course is only 256, which is the square of the 16. So we find out the 16 by 16 square in this image, which is going to generate a 256 input and map this image down to this one point. And how many image how many, there's a 16 by 16 block we need to cover the whole image. We need at least 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are some overlaps between two different blocks. I will show here. And since we need to cover those whole image, we actually need to slide this block to the different directions, to this direction, to that direction. And this block stride is the important parameters, in the tumor's mapping. And the smaller stripes, which means the number of the pixels we're going to move, then the higher accuracy we're going to generate in general, and the more mapping will generate, which means we are going to occupy more neurosynaptic pores. In this case, if 16 and 28, the square will equal to 12, which means we need to move 12 pixels, to cover the whole thing by 4 blocks. And for the different colors, we need 3 times more, like RGB, to represent things. Okay, so that's how things work. The next question is why we got those information lost and how. Here's one example. Let's call a traditional floating point operation. We got some input. Input will go to the floating point value. It can be 0.75, 0.2, or 0.6, some of the first. And the weight will be also floating point. And it can be positive and negative. It can be 0.8 or a negative, 0.5 or some first. And we got something out. In this case, in this column, we actually compute all this input times by the corresponding weight, and positive and negative, and generate the final result, which is 0.3. And we know 0.3 is larger than 0, so the output would actually be 1. But when we map those computations down to the right side, we run into troubles. The trouble is this. Number 1, we need to use the spikes to represent the data. How are we going to represent 0.77 and 7.5? Easy. We choose 4 spikes, and we only generate 3 out of them, and leave 1 blank. By doing so, we say, now the probability of the generation of spike is 0.75, we got 0.75. But what if 0.6? So either generate 0.5 or 0.75. You cannot have 0.6, right? That is the information loss. The more spikes give you the more accuracy, the higher accuracy on this data representation, but you need to run multiple times to compute the data. That is the computation time cost. That's one type of loss. Another type of loss, we only choose 3 types of integer across the whole column. 1, -1, and 0. Okay. Well, what if we want to represent 0.5? We need 2 copies of the hardware. 1, the corresponding point here, turn it on and say 1. Another one, turn it off, means 0. Average those 2 copies, you got 0.5. What about 0.6? You have 5 copies. 3 on, 2 off. You got 0.6. What about negative 0.4? You still have 5 copies. 3 turn it off, 2 turn it on, but both of them turn it on will be the negative 1. You got this. Now you see you see the tricks. If you want to accurately represent the input data, you have to increase the number of the spikes. If you want to accurately represent the weight, you have to duplicate the hardware copies. They either increase the hardware copies, increase the computation time to improve the accuracy. And the turnout probability of this weight equal to the normalized weight of this synapse. And the generation probability of this spikes equal to the normalized input. And mathematically, we can prove the mathematical expectation of the output y, which is I prime, equal to the sum of the mathematical which is equal to the mathematical expectation of the wi prime xi prime, which is the represented weight and also the input as expectation of the y prime equal to expectation of this sum equal to this and this, and finally equal to y. as long as we have a sufficient large number of the spikes and a sufficient number of the hardware copies. Okay, and then we got the alpha equal to this. Let's be the actual function. So the issue is, what if we don't have sufficient large number of the spikes or the number of the copies? Let's say the original accuracy in the cafe we trained is about 95.27%. If we apply our training the neural network down to the tumors, we got 90% accuracy for one neural network copies and one spike per frame, which means you have 0 and 1. Okay, no others. If we increase the number of the spikes per frame from 1 to 4, you improve the accuracy from 90% to 92% or 93%. If we increase the number of the copies of the hardware to 16, you increase the accuracy to the 16 to the 94%. Now you see the trend. But for this, the run time will increase by 4 times. For this, the hardware cost will increase by 16 times. Now the question is how you can solve the problem, how you can overcome this problem. We received this board about 3 years ago, so my student actually read their code. Because that time still a lot to read their code. So to see what we could do, okay, to input the accuracy. The accuracy is really bad. They give us a very small, chip actually. So even the chip itself is large, but because the overhead is so large, so we can run very small neural networks. My students say maybe we can do something to speed up. So we will read their code. Okay, the code basically say the difference between the y prime, which is the value we receive from the output, minus the target y, target of the y, equal to delta y, that equal to this equation. That's the sum of the wi prime times the xi prime with this, the integer weight times the integer spike input, minus the floating point, the weight times the floating point, the input. So the expectation of the delta y equal to 0, we already prove mathematically the mathematical expectation of the y prime equal to y. Okay, but the variance of the delta y is not 0. It's actually the sum of the variance of the wi times x, wi prime times x by I prime. Wi prime is the integer weight. Xi prime is a spike input. We're not be able to change the xi prime because xi prime is the input, which depends on the particular application, change all the time. So what we could do is the wi prime. So my student calculate the variance of the wi prime, which equal to the expectation of the wi prime square minus the square of the expectation of the wi prime. And it's hard to turn out. So the wi prime, if we normalize the weight, equal to what? Equal to the probability of turn on and off the symmetrical weight equals 1. Okay? For example, if I have wi prime equal to 0.6, then the probability will be equal to 0.6. So we're going to normalize as well. So the final result will be the variance of the wi prime equal to the probability to turn on the weight minus times 1 minus this probability. And then the probability is can consider as the floating point weight, normalize the floating point weight. Let's go back to the elementary school math. So what is the minimal value of this product? P times 1 minus P. when p equal to 1 to 0. What is the maximal? 0.5. Very simple. Like we show here. We plug p here. When p equal to 0, we got 0. P equal to 1, we got 0. P equal to 0.5, we got the maximal variance, which is the variance of the wi prime, which is the maximum variance of delta y, or the variance of between y prime minus y. What that means? That actually means when p equal to 0 and 1, we got the smallest deviation between the target output and the one we really see. When the p equal to 0.5, we got the largest deviation. Why? It's very simple. Because 0 to 1 means you actually train your synaptic weight to integer, which can precisely represented by using the integer weight. And 0.5 means you actually train something between 0 and 1, which is very hard to be represented by using 0 and 1. Right? If you understand this, and all the things we learned today, the solution is very simple. Can we train the weight of the neural network close to 0 and 1, but not something in between? If we can play this game, what we're training in the cafe will be perfectly mapped to the tuners, which only have the integer weight. Actually, today I didn't talk about a lot of things. I'll talk about one thing. Okay? We play the game on the training and the game of so many different things. Accuracy, power, so on and so forth. There's only one thing I talked today. How we can do this? Before I go to the next slide, I think many of you should know the answer, right? We give the penalty to what? We give the penalty to the training weight, which is far away from 0 to 1, and give the lowest penalty to 0 to 1. Actually, 0 penalty to 0 to 1. I will show here. Original, we got data loss. We'll handle this. Original, we got data loss here. If we don't add any penalty during the training, which is what IBM does, the training weight will evenly distributed between 0 and 1. Like I show here. The deviation of the weight, the deviation between the training weight and the represented weight on the tuners will be like this. And the brighter color means the larger deviation, the dark color means the smaller one. Because a lot of the weights are not perfectly represented at the integer weight on the tuners, right? If we add the penalty, like the green curve show here, we give the highest penalty when the weight equals to 0.5, and the lowest penalty when 0 and 1. And this equation shows, it's very simple. A and B, actually is a 1 and 0. So as I show here, you will apply A and B equal to 0.5. We have this here as one item in the loss function here. The training weight will distribute it around 0 and 1 and have very minimal number of the weights at training around 0.5. And this one shows the deviation between the one weight training and the mapped. Pretty dark, which means the one you're training will actually perfectly map to the tuners. Very simple idea, very simple. So what we did is just change one line of the code of the IBM. So the code. I have one slide. Okay. So result. Okay. So the copies of the network equal from 1 to 15, copies of slide 1 to 4, So those are all the configurations we test. The red one is the baseline from IBM. So they actually run their code, they basically give us this accuracy. The yellow surface is our result. We outperform IBM, solution for all the combinations. Of course. So the speed up accuracy, you see the same accuracy, actually we can achieve about 6.5 times the speed up. Compared with IBM, compared with the IBM result. And for the core reduction, between how many copies you need to achieve for the high accuracy, we actually reduce about 2/3. Okay. This actually we run the different spikes. You will see actually for the different spikes, you actually have a different average core reduction for those stuff. The higher spikes, which is the higher accuracy on the input, we actually can save more cores to achieve a similar accuracy. So the concurrent, but I'm not going to read concurrent. I think this is a copy from my slides for the talk. But we actually, because we have a contract, so we are not able to publish something about 1 year until they allow us to publish. But we give this paper 6 months before we submit. Someone the PI of the tumors, met me in one conference and say, hey, we are really good paper, good job. They even this one actually in our newest release, but they refuse to give us code anymore. They say they're not going to. I don't want you to read our code anymore. So it's yes word. Okay, I will stop here. So I have the two topics for one.
Any questions?
I think they are trying to get money for it because the current tool does not have a learning capability. They want to have learning capability, but they don't have money yet.
So any questions? 有没有同学们有什么问题？好，那如果没有问题的话，我们就这边 take a break。那因为我们现在有一点超时，所以我们还是休息30分钟。我们3点20分的时候回来。好，那个后面的时钟是慢5分钟啊。我们现在3点20分回来。